chopping stuff up. My wife sees it. She sees a little bit of blood in there. She's like, I don't like that. We go get.
And I almost hate asking you this question. At any point, were you afraid of dying?
The whole time. Yeah. Something at WrestleMania that we had
What was
talked
it?
about. I was going to do something with Gable Steveson.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Imagine the arena lights dimming, the roar of the crowd fading, and a voice that has ruled the ring for decades saying the show is over. That's the headline shockwave that has just landed. Triple H announces WWE is closing. For 40 years, Vince McMahon was the mastermind pulling every string, but the man who stepped into the headset, Triple H, has always been the one who redefined the backstage war. From reinventing himself in the Attitude Era to marrying into the company's core, he moved from wrestler to puppet master, but never quite believed he was meant to run the whole machine. Yet, under his watch, NXT became more than a developmental brand. Black and gold banners fluttered over molten hot takeovers. Sami Zayn's underdog saga, Kevin Owens' ruthless arrival, Sasha Banks and Bayley redefining women's wrestling, Finn Balor and Asuka dominating. NXT turned into the true show, an ecosystem of character arcs and slow burns that listened to its fans. So how does the Titan who built that kingdom now declare WWE itself is closing? Is it a betrayal, a strategic pivot, or a statement about the future of wrestling? In this video, we break down the announcement, explore what it means for the legacy of WWE, and dive into the implications for the talent, the fans, and the wrestling world at large. Strap in. This isn't just a headline, it's a seismic shift in the industry, and we're here to unpack every jab, every beat, and every backstage angle. Triple H was never meant to run the machine. For 4 decades, WWE operated like a circus under Vince McMahon's tight-fisted control. Every storyline, every promo, every finish bore the unmistakable imprint of a master puppeteer. Vince was the man who pulled every string, bending the entire product until it echoed his grandiose vision. In the midst of that hierarchy, Triple H emerged as a wrestler who survived the Attitude Era, reinvented himself as the architect of the in-ring product, and ultimately married into the seat of power. Yet when he finally hung up the tights and picked up the headset, he became something far more dangerous than a main event. He became the man who, to the very fans who trusted him, became a real booker. The trust that built around him began in NXT, the developmental brand that, under his guidance, morphed into a kingdom of its own. Black and gold banners floated over packed arenas, turning takeover nights into rituals that eclipsed the grandiosity of Raw or SmackDown. Matches staged under his direction were often the stuff of legend, outshining the main roster in quality and heart. Sami Zayn's underdog saga, Kevin Owens' ruthless entrance, Sasha Banks and Bayley redefining women's wrestling in Brooklyn, Finn Balor leading a new era, Asuka's unbreakable dominance, Adam Cole's reign at the center of it all. Each of these stories unfolded under the careful orchestration of a booker who understood the pulse of the crowd. Under Triple H, NXT ceased to be a mere stepping stone. It became the apex, the showcase that proved that professional wrestling could be both critically acclaimed and emotionally satisfying. But excellence in match quality alone was not enough. Triple H constructed an entire ecosystem. He listened to the voices of fans. He read the subtle cues of what resonated and what flopped. When the crowd rejected Baron Corbin's push, he recalibrated. When Becky Lynch's fire sparked, he amplified it. The NXT brand became a laboratory where character arcs, slow burns, and audience engagement coalesced. Every takeover felt like a pilgrimage. WrestleMania weekends were no longer the domain of stadiums alone, but of Brooklyn and New Orleans arenas teeming with 10,000 die-hard fans who treated wrestling like a living, breathing religion. Meanwhile, the main roster's pay-per-views sometimes felt hollow, a stark contrast that could not be ignored. Then came 2022, a year that saw the cracks in Vince's empire widen until they fractured. Ratings had not collapsed, rather, scandal swirled around the company's upper echelons. The Wall Street Journal's investigative piece, the Stephanie McMahon boardroom coup, all culminated in a shift of power. The iron grip that had shackled WWE for decades slipped, and a new ruler, Paul H., or Papa H as he was later known, rose to claim the throne, armed with the hashtag #ThankYouYou. The wrestling Twitterverse declared it Independence Day. The promise was clear. Papa H would carry the black and gold philosophy beyond NXT and into Raw and SmackDown, rescuing an empire that had long languished under Vince's overbearing hand. At first, the transition felt like a breath of fresh air. Wrestlers long discarded by Vince returned to ovations, their performances invigorated. The charismatic duo of the Carreras and the Crosses walked through strobe lights, igniting the arena. Dakota Kai received the spotlight she deserved. Johnny Gargano's return electrified the internet, his raw authenticity resonating with a generation of fans. By WrestleMania 39, WWE was riding a wave. Over 160,000 fans filled SoFi Arena across 2 nights, creating the highest-grossing WWE event in history. For the first time in decades, belief seemed tangible. Triple H was no longer just a booker. He was the man who could reshape wrestling's future. The revolution that the fans had longed for seemed to endure. Show quality steadied, matches had finishes that felt earned, wrestlers who had seemed expendable under Vince found renewed purpose. For a fleeting moment, the audience thought the shift was real. Yet, as history teaches us, revolutions rarely last forever, and cracks began to show, hidden beneath black and gold facades. The first warning sign manifested in pacing. Raw and SmackDown were booked like extended takeovers. 25-minute matches focused on technical wrestling, but draining the crowd's energy. What had worked in a sold-out NXT house of 10,000 hardcore fans did not translate to the millions of casual viewers flipping channels on Monday nights. The unpredictability that had once made wrestling the most exciting appointment television was replaced by structure, logic, and, most dangerously, predictability. Gunther's Intercontinental Championship reign epitomized this. On paper, a dominant monster champion who elevated everyone he faced was a brilliant concept. In practice, it became formulaic. A face challenger would be dominated for 15 minutes, stage a comeback, and ultimately lose. Repeat this over 666 days, and the saga becomes an endless loop. By late 2025, patterns hardened into habits. Jey Uso against Gunther appeared in endless variations. Multi-man tag matches were cobbled together merely to give everyone TV time. The same wrestlers, the same matchups, the same predictable outcomes. Viewership slipped as fans found nothing new to anticipate. The Judgment Day storyline exposed Triple H's greatest flaw. Initially, it seemed a masterstroke. Rhea Ripley ascending to megastar status. Finn Balor resurrected from the dead. Dominic Mysterio turning into the company's most despised heel. Yet by SummerSlam 2023, the angle was stunted, begging for a decisive conclusion that never arrived. Damian Priest joined, turned, rejoined. J.D. McDonough was added without clear purpose. What began as compelling television became a soap opera devoid of its own narrative memory. By the time the payoff arrived, the audience was numb. This became Triple H's unforgivable sin, hoarding every meaningful moment for WrestleMania while treating the remaining 11 months like rehearsal. Wrestling thrives on momentum, on cliffhangers that force you to tune in the next week. But if nothing matters until April, why watch in November? The shift in tone suffocated fans. Vince's chaos had been maddening, but it was alive. The unpredictable return of Stone Cold, the surprise of a high flyer's debut, the madness of an unscripted angle, these moments kept audiences glued. Triple H's order replaced that chaos with an oppressive routine. Fans no longer felt insulted, they felt patient. Patience, however, is a finite currency in wrestling. Triple H's NXT reputation was built on elevating the stars the audience chose for him. He fought Vince to protect Sami Zayn, gave Kevin Owens a stage to explode, and allowed the Four Horsewomen to redefine women's wrestling. Yet on the main roster, that instinct twisted into something uglier, favoritism that ignored what fans were screaming for. The clearest, most painful example was LA Knight. By summer 2023, he was undeniable. His "yeah" chant echoed through arenas, his catchphrases trended on social media, and his merchandise outsold established names. The crowd had chosen him organically, the rarest and most precious thing in wrestling. All Triple H had to do was strike while the iron was molten. Instead, he hesitated. Knight was handed mid-card scraps while fans begged for more. He won the United States Championship, but by then, the moment had dulled. A once-in-a-decade organic rise was wasted because Knight wasn't one of Papa H's pet projects. It was wrestling's ultimate sin, refusing the star the audience delivered on a silver platter. The consequences were swift. Word spread that Knight was fired, though the official announcement never came. The rumor mill swirled, the audience felt betrayed, and Triple H's credibility eroded further. In the grand tapestry of WWE's history, the rise and fall of a booker can be measured not just by the titles he bestows or the storylines he crafts, but by the resonance of the crowd's heartbeat. Triple H's journey from a wrestler who outlasted an era to a booker who reshaped an entire brand was meteoric. Yet the very same qualities that allowed him to create unforgettable moments, his analytical mind, his willingness to innovate, his listening ear, became the same traits that, when misapplied, led to a predictable, stale product. As the months progressed, fans began to notice subtle shifts. The once energetic opening promos on Raw lost their spark. The old-school chants that had defined the show were replaced with rehearsed catchphrases. The Big Four matches that once seemed like climactic fireworks were now mere repetitions of the same patterns. The brand's creative calendar started to feel like a well-tuned machine, but a machine that had lost its soul. One could argue that Triple H's downfall is not a simple story of failure. It is a cautionary tale of balance. The same careful craftsmanship that made NXT a beloved brand could not be scaled without adaptation. The raw intensity of NXT could not survive the dilution required for a global audience. The unpredictability that made wrestling a cultural phenomenon could not be replaced by a clean, calculated narrative without losing the fans' trust. When fans walk into an arena and hear a voice in the announcer's booth that feels familiar, that speaks to their shared history, they feel a connection that transcends the product. When that connection is broken, when the creative vision no longer reflects the collective voice, the show loses its purpose. Triple H's story, therefore, is not just a narrative of bookmaking. It is a mirror reflecting the delicate dance between control and chaos, between order and spontaneity, between the vision of a single man and the collective yearning of a global audience. In the end, the measure of a booker's legacy is not just the championships he awards, but the way the audience reacts to the show's rhythm. Triple H's meteoric rise showed what could be achieved when a booker truly listened. His decline reminds us that the same listening, when stifled, can erase that very brilliance. The lessons are clear. Wrestling's greatest strength lies in its capacity to surprise, to evolve, and to honor the very fans who give the show life. Whether Papa H can recalibrate, rediscover unpredictability, and restore the pulse of WWE remains a question for the future. But the script of his tenure will echo in the annals of the industry for years to come. The fallout rippled far beyond the locker rooms and into every living room where a match unfolded. In his first major feud, the Wyatt Six devoured months of television without delivering a single meaningful payoff. They sat on the screen, a silent tableau of intimidation that offered nothing but frustration. Cameron Grimes, a product of NXT's raw authenticity, was resurrected from exile only to be given a void role that never materialized into storyline depth. The result was a quiet release, a decision that read less like a narrative pivot and more like a tidy wipeout of potential. These moves were not born from audience demand. They were toys in Triple H's hands, twisted and reshuffled until the shape fit a pre-written outline. The pattern repeated itself with established stars whose careers were already steeped in legacy. Dolph Ziggler, a 2-decade veteran whose charisma could have lit a stadium, was cut in the prime of his resurgence. Mustafa Ali, whose character had finally found a voice, was snatched mid-arc, leaving fans and critics alike to wonder what might have been. Even veterans like Hit Row found themselves in a scenario where Swerve Strickland was absent, a story broken before it could breathe. None of these choices made business sense. None of them served the creative engine. They only served the idea that the boardroom had an eye on the line item, not on the fan's pulse. For those on the lucky end of the cutboard, the world offered time, patience, and an open hand. For the rest, no matter how many thousands screamed their name, they were sidelined, minimized, or released. The pandemic had already forced Raw into a leaner, more self-contained form, and Drew McIntyre, the brand's pandemic backbone, held multiple championships. Yet he never received the sustained push that could have turned him into a mainstream juggernaut. The emphasis stayed on the familiar faces of NXT alumni, regardless of how the crowd responded. When fans noticed, they felt betrayed, not by a single storyline, but by an entire system that seemed to reward selectivity over connection. The corporate merger with UFC under the Endeavor umbrella produced TKO Group, a conglomerate that turned WWE from a family enterprise into a line item in a multi-billion-dollar portfolio. Sponsors, shareholders, and quarterly reports became the loudest voices, dictating creative decisions with a weight that dwarfed any fan chant. Mass layoffs came without warning, and entire storylines were shredded when wrestlers were cut mid-angle. Triple H's beloved performers, who he believed in, vanished months later as TKO's accountants erased them from the roster. The most painful example came with R-Truth, a veteran whose career never failed to elicit a pop. He was released in 2025 without ceremony, and the only spark that ignited a response was fan outrage that forced his rehiring, but the damage had already been done. Meanwhile, the celebrity wave surged. Logan Paul's YouTube subscriber count catapulted him into championship contention, an example of how corporate marketing trumped in-ring merit. Cinnamon Toast Crunch branding hijacked serious matches, turning a bout into a cereal advertisement. Celebrity guests appeared on shows, eclipsing hungry wrestlers who deserve the spotlight. To the public, corporate interference was invisible. It was hidden behind Triple H's face as the creative visionary, so every compromise landed on his shoulders. The most visible manifestation of this was nostalgia. When creative stalled, ratings dipped, the playbook refused to change. Legends were dusted off, themes played, the crowd popped, and the problem seemed fixed, only to return with a hollow echo. The Rock's 2024 return illustrated the flaw perfectly. He stormed SmackDown, verbally tore down Cody Rhodes, dropped a people's elbow, and disappeared back to Hollywood. John Cena announced his retirement tour, delivered emotional speeches about legacy, wrestled scattered matches, and vanished between appearances. Brock Lesnar was pulled out again. Each of these moments created instant pops and trended on social media, but the subsequent week was a hangover when nothing had changed. No new star was elevated. The narrative was a recycled loop. The most damaging nostalgia call came at WrestleMania 39, where Cody Rhodes was whiteout, a prodigal son ready to finish his story. The crowd begged for it. WWE needed a new face, and the moment demanded it. Instead, Triple H booked Roman Reigns to retain, saying the story wasn't ready. By the time Cody finally won at WrestleMania 40, the magic had drained. The win was a technical triumph, but it was devoid of the electric anticipation that had once defined him. It becomes apparent that the era was a tapestry woven with a few golden threads, but marred by a bulk of smoke and mirror decisions. The lack of a new megastar is the most damning criticism. While the ring still produced moments like Gunner's championship victories and Gunner's dynamic entrance, it failed to give any wrestler the platform to become the face of the company. The lack of a new superstar like a modern version of Stone Cold or The Undertaker meant that WWE's lineage remained stuck in its own echo chamber. Fans who once saw themselves as the lifeblood of the product found the product's heartbeat slowed and predictable. The question now is whether Papa H can recalibrate, rediscover unpredictability, and restore the pulse of WWE. It is a question that lingers in the minds of every fan who watched the decline. The script of his tenure will echo in the annals of the industry for years to come, but only if the narrative can be corrected. If the closure announcement came in the form of a statement that WWE is shutting down, the message would echo the same themes. Corporate control over creative, a reliance on nostalgia, the absence of genuine story development, and the failure to honor fans who give the show life. The final act would not be a dramatic finale, but a quiet fade, a line item closed, a legacy buried under a corporate envelope. The Triple H era, when examined closely, reveals an intricate balance between vision and execution. On one hand, the ability to produce instant spectacle, The Rock's elbow, Cena's speeches, Logan Paul's debut, demonstrated that the company could still generate buzz. On the other, the systemic reliance on selective storylines, celebrity marketing, and nostalgia rather than innovation created a fragile narrative. The company's shift into a line item, the TKO merger, and the subsequent layoffs show how profit motives can eclipse the original creative purpose of an organization built on storytelling. The release of longtime veterans without ceremony indicates a loss of respect for the people who gave fans hope. In hindsight, the Triple H era is a mixed bag. It can be seen as greatness for those who appreciated the high-profile moments and the strategic booking of established talents. But for the broader fan base, the era feels like smoke and mirrors. The lack of real surprise, the stunted evolution of characters, and the corporate overlays that overrode in-ring merit have left many with a sense of disappointment. Wrestling's greatest strength lies in its capacity to surprise, to evolve, and to honor the very fans who give the show life. Whether Papa H can recalibrate, rediscover unpredictability, and restore the pulse of WWE remains a question for the future. Yet the script of his tenure will echo in the annals of the industry for years to come.